It's been a few years since Brexit now, hasn't it? And I know, like many of you listening, I've been thinking about its lasting impact on the EU.
Absolutely. It's a topic that keeps coming up.
Right. We've gathered some really pointed questions here, looking at challenges, effects across Europe, and, what might be next. So the mission for this deep dive.
Is really to unpack the EU post-UK based on these key areas.
Exactly. A concise look.
We're focusing on how the EU is adapting both internally and on the world stage. These questions really get to the core of it.
Okay, let's jump in. First up, what are the main challenges the EU is facing now the UK is gone? It feels like a pretty big gap to fill.
It is. A major one is just maintaining that long-term stability and, well, cohesion without the UK's economic and political heft. It definitely raises questions.
Questions about the EU's direction and unity among the remaining 27.
Precisely. And then there's the whole Euroscepticism angle.
Ah, yes. Did Brexit actually embolden others to think about leaving, or did the whole difficult process maybe deter them?
That's the interesting part. Initially, there was talk of a domino effect, right?
Sure. Lots of speculation.
But the reality, the challenges the UK has faced since leaving, it seems to have acted more like a warning sign for many.
So, not quite the inspiration some skeptics hoped for.
It seems not.
Yeah.
While those sentiments are still out there, you don't see widespread serious movements for other exits gaining huge momentum.
Which leads to another point. Could the EU actually be more unified now without a member that often, let's be honest, pushed back or opted out?
Well, there's an argument for that. Without the UK potentially blocking or needing special arrangements, maybe agreement on some policies is quicker.
Easier to get things done.
Perhaps.
Oh.
But on the flip side, you lose a major, often different perspective. That could potentially narrow the debate, couldn't it?
Good point. Okay, we have to touch on the UK itself. Briefly, what have been the main consequences for them since leaving? Politically, economically?
Well, politically, the UK is still navigating its place outside the EU framework,
Yeah.
defining that new role.
Still work in progress.
Definitely. And economically, well, certain sectors, particularly those tied closely to the EU market pre-Brexit, they've faced real adjustments. New customs, trade friction.
Things aren't as smooth as they were.
No. And understanding that UK context is crucial for seeing the EU side, too.
Right. It's all interconnected. So how has the EU adapted its foreign policy without the UK's voice and, frankly, its military and diplomatic influence?
They've had to adapt. There's been a clearer focus on strengthening partnerships with others, maybe compensating in areas like defense and security cooperation among the 27, trying to maintain that global standing.
Okay, this is key. Lessons learned. What has the EU actually taken away from the whole Brexit saga? Have they changed how they operate?
I think Brexit really highlighted the need for better communication with citizens, maybe more flexibility internally.
Acknowledging differences between member states more.
Exactly, and understanding their specific concerns. Perhaps more focus on, tailored integration rather than a one-size-fits-all approach. Some internal reflection definitely happened.
So, given those lessons, is the fear of other countries leaving still a big worry, or has that faded?
You can never say never, of course, but the immediate risk seems lower now than perhaps it did right after the referendum.
Combination of the UK's experience and maybe the EU getting better at managing internal tensions.
That seems plausible. It's tempered the mood, I think.
Let's switch to trade. How did Brexit shake up the EU's trade deals around the world?
Well, it forced a major reshuffle. The UK isn't part of the EU's collective agreements anymore.
So new deals needed everywhere.
Right. The EU and the UK had to negotiate their own bilateral deal, and the EU also had to ensure its existing deals with other countries reflected the UK's absence. It likely reinforced the EU's focus on internal unity in trade talks.
And global leadership. Has the EU's influence taken a hit without the UK, or has it opened up space for others, maybe France or Germany, or the EU itself as a bloc?
It's probably a bit of both. The EU lost a significant voice, a P5 member, a major economy. That's undeniable.
Creates a vacuum in some ways.
It can. But it also might push other members, or the EU institutions themselves, to step up. It's a chance to redefine the EU's global role based on the members it has now.
Okay, here's a counterintuitive thought. Could Brexit, in a strange way, actually be good for EU reform in the long run? A catalyst?
It's a provocative idea, isn't it? That such a major shock could force necessary changes.
Like streamline things, make it more efficient?
Possibly. Disruptions sometimes create the political space for reforms that were difficult before. It could lead to a more focused union, perhaps. It's a massive upheaval, but maybe one that prompts needed evolution.
So wrapping this part up, The EU, after Brexit, is clearly navigating some deep waters. Changes in unity, global standing, internal procedures. It's ongoing.
Absolutely. It's not a finished story. The departure of such a key player has triggered really substantial adaptations right across the board.
Which brings us perfectly to our final thought for you listening to mull over. When you consider all these challenges, these adaptations, what do you think will be the single most significant long-term consequence of Brexit for the European Union and its place in the world? Definitely something worth pondering.